All right, kids, episode 6 of the Terminal List. We kind of take a little break from the literal Terminal List because James Reese is now being hunted by an elite team after the events of episode 5. There's a huge manhunt in the mountains of California. They're all hunting for James Reese, and it's like a special ops team, and then also the guy from NCIS who was, or maybe it's FBI. I think it's NCIS who is hunting him. The guy that's been on the case the whole time. He has a lot of outdoors and military tactical training, and so he joins up with this 5-man team, making it a 6-man team, to hunt down James Reese in the wilderness. Also, Reese is injured. So when he's first escaping, he actually takes some gunfire and gets a bullet wound in his arm. And so a lot of people compared this episode to First Blood, and I 100% agree with that sentiment. I think, being a big fan of First Blood, I could say that it felt a lot like it. Now, it wasn't as, I don't know, I have a darker kind of perception, I guess, of First Blood. I'm not sure why, but they do have the whole, the element of a terrible torrential downpour, thunderstorm, and it actually works to Reese's benefit. It actually kind of helps him hide a bit because, the people hunting him, they can't move either. They can't really hunt him in a crazy downpour. So everyone kind of takes cover for the night during that part, and that actually is something very similar happens in First Blood. So there's a lot of there's a period in First Blood where John Rambo is in a cave, in a series of caves, making his way through there, and that very similar in this. He hides out in a cave overnight, but I love all the things that he does in this, to throw them off his path. He uses two 9-volt batteries and connects them so that they put out a heat signature, and then they don't know what to track, right? They're tracking him by heat signature, and they can't use their drones because of the weather, right? So that's what, he survives by staying away from them for the most part in the beginning because of that storm and just his, survival skills in the wilderness. I don't know if the bullet is in him. I feel like he tried to remove the bullet, but it looked like it almost sliced through him, like it was a through and through, but I could be wrong. He ends up cauterizing the wound because it won't stop bleeding. It's an open wound. He cauterizes it. I think that happened in First Blood as well. I think he did something similar to that. At least had to tie off a wound or something. But very similar. He's injured out in the wilderness, being stalked by a group of people. Now, the big difference between this and First Blood, and what I like more about it, not to say I like this better than First Blood, don't get me wrong, but this element of it, the people that were hunting him in First Blood were really incompetent. Okay, they were all volunteer National Guard, right? And they really didn't want to be there. They didn't have as much tactical training and wilderness survival training. And they were just way out of their league against John Rambo, the Special Forces guy. Whereas this tactical team that's hunting him down in this episode of the Terminal List, they're up on his level, if not near his level, right? And it's actually a challenge to evade them. And they actually catch up to him on numerous occasions to the point where Reese has to detonate an explosion of C4 to basically create an avalanche or a rock slide, right? And almost kills, I can't remember her name, but the other member of NCIS or FBI or whatever, and he buries her completely and has to dig her out. So I think that lets them know that he's not this ruthless killer. He's not completely out of his mind, because, he saved this woman's life. He could have just left her to die. And he actually risked himself to stick around long enough to pull her out. But yeah, really incredible, really intense episode. I love survival stuff. Like, there is a ton of movies that I enjoy like this. Everything from not only First Blood, but like, God, man. There was this movie. Okay, so I recently rewatched a movie with Wesley Snipes called U.S. Marshals. I love stuff like this. The Fugitive, wherever someone's evading capture, and then they have to go like into the wilderness or float down a river or survive in the woods. I love that sort of thing. What else? The movie The Wanted. I think it's called The Wanted. I think it's called The Wanted. Benicio del Toro film. Very similar. He's like a special forces guy who has to survive in the wilderness. I love that sort of stuff. I love like man versus the elements. Also versus other men hunting him. So this episode had it all for me. I absolutely love it. It's like tactical military stuff, wilderness survival, and thinking quick on his feet, and like being injured. And I also love the element of every once in a while how he would like hallucinate like his wife and daughter. He keeps having these flashbacks to them in the house, and the sparrow crashing into the window. But then also, I really liked how they kept, it was like his daughter was out there hiking with him when he was out there trying to survive. And, it's a callback to like he used to actually go hiking with her. And so very similar. They, her essence is like out there with him, and he's like hallucinating that he's on this hike with his daughter. I love that stuff. It's still, like I said, it's heartbreaking. Like every time he thinks of his family, every time he thinks of his little girl, and she's like talking to him, asking him questions, like, just being an innocent little girl, right? Just being his little baby girl. And I can resonate with that just because, my daughter is like, God, she's the most precious thing ever in my life, and so sweet and innocent, and you imagine losing that. It's like, it really hits home for anyone who has a daughter. I've seen some cool stuff online about this series, by the way. I wanted to throw this in here because I kept saying that a lot of people were complaining about it. There are people complaining about it, but if you look at the Rotten Tomatoes score, it's quite interesting. I think it's 40%, which is a rotten score when it comes to critics, but audience score has it at like 95%. So people like you and me, most of us absolutely love this series. And I'm still loving it. Episode 6 is out. Now we're on episodes 7 and 8, the final 2 to tie it up. And I can't wait to get to them, man. I can't wait to get to them. Sorry that I didn't get an episode out yesterday. I actually had a different podcast that I was recording and putting out. But I'm back on track now, and over the next 3 days, you should be getting my final thoughts on the Terminal List. It does differentiate from the book. I don't remember, like, what happened in this episode, I don't remember happening really at all in the book. So it has veered from the book quite a bit, but I think in great ways. This episode is a wonderful inclusion to the story. I don't think, like, it in no way takes away from it. It only adds to the story. And I almost wish the book would have had a survive in the wilderness type scene like this. A very First Blood portion of the book would have been great. Anyway, love to hear what you guys think. Let me know what you thought of this kind of departure, this episode that was almost, I feel like, I could be wrong. Maybe I'm just misremembering. Maybe he did have something like this happen in the book, but it didn't stand out to me, not in the way it did in this series. This will go down as one of my favorite episodes. If I rewatch the series, this will be one that I will really relish the rewatch. So, all right, let me know what you think in the comments below or on Instagram or Twitter at RealBrettScott. Reach out and let me know there. I love chatting back and forth about this. And yeah, if you enjoy this sort of thing where I talk about movies, TV, entertainment, pop culture, that sort of thing, then please subscribe to the channel. I try to do it just about every day. So if you do decide to stick around and subscribe or favorite or follow the Daily BS podcast, then I will talk to you again tomorrow. Thanks.